Niagara Falls, virtually connecting with Angela Maiers.
Hi, everybody, and I'm Whitney Kilgore coming to you live from North Texas. It's exciting to be connecting Texas and Canada tonight. And what I wanted to do was just kind of set the stage. Virtually connecting is a really wonderful way for those of us who maybe can't travel all the way to Canada and sit down and have a chat with Angela Maiers to get to do that, to have a chat with Angela Maiers all the way in Canada. So before we get started asking all kinds of interesting questions, and I know everybody's ready to ask a lot, let's start with introductions. I'm Whitney Kilgore. I mentioned I'm in North Texas. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of North Texas studying learning technologies, and I get my kicks in informal learning online. So I'll pass it to Allison and Michelle, then Karima and Shania to introduce themselves.
Whitney, are you a full-time student? Are you going full-time, or are you trying to do this in work?
I defend my dissertation in June, so I no longer think of it as full-time. I think of it as a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train.
We're almost there.
Yeah. So, Allison?
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Puis, and I'm from Ottawa. Well, currently in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, our wonderful capital. I'm actually a grade 7-8 French immersion teacher with the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board. I've actually just recently finished my master's in leadership practices with the very heavy focus on student voice. And I'm really excited that I get to be hanging out with the Ministry Student Advisor Council here in Ontario, which is a huge student voice consortium across the province. So I'm super excited to connect with all of you and to learn in this chat and see people face to face in our education system.
Allison, you have to talk French to me. So I did an interview this morning, and they were translating it in French, and all I said is, the answer is yes. That's it. I don't even know he's like saying all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm supposed to not be swooned. But I was like, I don't care what he said. I'm like, yes, yes, whatever it is. So
Je peux t'aider. I will help you.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I am connected to Allison in a very neat way. She's someone that came forward and said, "You matter," by helping with the Ontario Educators Chat.
Oh.
Helen is someone that I want to thank as well, because she brought forward the name to be a part here. So I'm from London, Ontario, and I work with the Student Work Study. It is part of the ministry, and it's part of the Student Achievement Series. I also have my master's in curriculum, but it was done a long time ago, and I think it was at a time when we really weren't so actively involved in student voice and bringing out the whole child. So I'm very interested to talk and hear what others have to say and to move forward in my own learning.
Love it. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
No, it's live. We have friends from the conference. Yeah.
Karima, let's go to you.
Hi, I'm Karima.
Hi, Mark St. Philip School of Patrol, yeah? Sorry, Ontario, how are you?
Hello, greetings.
So what are we doing here?
We're doing a live chat about the conference.
Oh, hey, it's amazing.
So you're live. We have 5 people tuning in. It is a wide audience, a worldwide audience.
I tweeted out Angela earlier in the week, and you know what? It's great to see her here. What a great message she had this morning. I kind of walked through the hotel and I saw a recording, so I
Fine work. Yeah, it's great. It's great. So can you go back and introduce really again? So we have Allison.
Where's she from?
She's joining us. Allison, you share from Ottawa.
Ottawa.
Michelle is in London.
Yes. And we're about to meet.
And then we have Michelle. Yep.
Yes.
And we're about to meet Karima.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karima Richards. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I'm an instructional technology specialist in the Aldine ISD School District. I'm excited to be in the chat with you guys this evening as well.
Yay.
Well, this is amazing. So,
And Shayna, we'll turn it over to you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
How are you, Angela?
Good. I'm fantastic.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So of all the ladies, maybe one of them in the background that would know where Sarnia is.
Know where what is?
Sarnia is.
I can't even make out. What did he say?
Sarnia, Ontario.
Oh, yes. It's very, very far, especially from where we are. I'm also in Texas. In Ontario, where is Ottawa, Ontario?
Oh, you mean Ontario?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks, ladies.
My husband was asking. It was male interaction. But I'm Shayna Glass, and I'm an instructional technology specialist as well in Aldine, in Houston. And I'm super excited to connect. I love connecting globally and sharing with others about that approach and how it can benefit. How you can learn from others.
Yeah. So before we get too deep into questions, I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to talk, because I've been on these Hangouts before, and one person can dominate questions. So I am going to just institute a round-robin approach. So we're going to start with Allison. You get to ask the first question, and the gloves come off, so no rules here. Angela's here to answer your question.
Do you know Reddit's Ask Me Anything? So Reddit is a platform, and it has a very rigorous, standard. Like if you're on it, it's everybody from the President of the United States, like Chris Hatfield, who's speaking here, did an amazing AMA. This is AMA virtual connecting style. You can ask me anything. You'll love the answer.
Perhaps when I've thought too seriously about this and not in as much of a comical fashion, I could have had fun with this. I still will, I promise. I think, Angela, my biggest question for you, and Michelle knows my personality a bit to maybe understand where this is coming from. I'm a huge believer in everybody mattering. I'm a huge believer in community. I'm a huge believer in you need to know your students and your colleagues to create that possibility and opportunity. You have created such an amazing shift in how we view things and your presence in the education system. What has maybe been your biggest pushback in getting to where you are? I mean, that's not worded correctly. Please note that I speak in French all day. It's always my excuse. But like, I mean, you've persevered. I don't know any per se with the challenges, but as educators who wish to make sure that the matter comes first, there is pushback. There are hurdles. There are hiccups. Yep. What has been one of the biggest ones that you've overcome to be where you are today?
So the root word of passion is to suffer. And so anything that you're doing, and I think it's not that I didn't know that, but this has been the most painful 3 years of my life and the most beautiful 3 years of my life. And I think the thing, when you're fighting for something and you're moving forward, any change, even if you think it's simple change, you're prepared for that. We want to prepare students for that. The resistance is something that you welcome. I think the most surprising thing as the message started emerging and scaling, and it was accepted openly and actively by the world. When the message first came out, my first call was from Wall Street executives, from NASA scientists, from everyone from the Mayo Clinic to a leading cutting-edge business. And I intended the message to be for educators, thinking this would be such an embraced thing. My biggest resistance is from the education community. And that I definitely was not prepared for. And I think the initial sort of protective reaction is that this is simplistic and that any reform in education must be complicated. It must have multisyllabic words. It must be a minimum of a 17-year implementation plan. And the idea of transformation being something simple. Simplistic isn't simple. Simple is difficult. If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, then you're not going to make any grounds with it. So we're in the world because I move back and forth between the world of work and the world of education. And simple is the coveted sort of standard that you reach. You want something that's scalable, and it must be simple enough. The Japanese call this philosophy Kaizen, where it is a very small action done fiercely. And we do not do that well in education. So the dismissal and the marginalization of the message and the movement is by far the biggest hurdle. And that's a leadership issue, that's a mindset issue, but the people that embrace it most are the people on the front lines. They're the teachers. They are the ones every day facing their own hurdles, their own challenges, because, in the United States anyway, in the history of American education, teacher morale has never been lower. That is absolutely frightening. That is the most horrific statistic, because if the teachers aren't leading and educating from a place of worthiness, we have little hope that this is going to impact our kids. So it is both beautiful because the people who need it most, which are the teachers, because then they're the ones who reach the kids every day, they've embraced it. But in terms of the broader educational community, especially academia, higher education, it is dismissed as irrelevant, as sort of this warm, fuzzy, oh, she's just a motivational speaker, not understanding that I have a background in neuroscience. So every single element of this it has been researched and quantified at the molecular level. That this is not just like, oh, just tell people they matter and the world will be okay. It's a very sophisticated biological framework that's driving me, not an ideological framework. So I think I wasn't ready for that. And now I'm ready for that. I expect it and I welcome it. But I think in the beginning, that was my biggest disappointment and sadness, was I thought that my first taste of it was I did an article for the Huffington Post introducing the movement, and the title of the article was, "If you don't secure kids' hearts, you don't have a shot at their brains." And the vileness of the comment caused the editors at Huffington Post to actually block educators from commenting, and the reaction of the community on how visceral educators were, higher educators were, against the message because it wasn't rigor and it wasn't scientific enough or whatever it is, that took me back. But now I'm okay with it. Does that surprise you? Is that surprising? That?
No.
No. I think first of all, you speak so eloquently, and you've hit a button with me, and I'm sure the other ones here in a positive way. That there is more good out there than there is negative. The negative sometimes overpowers the positive and the opportunity and the possibility.
Yep.
It doesn't surprise me, but at the same time, it does. It's not in my brain of how this works when our intentions to be in the education system are to be positive. But yeah, thank you for being so candid with that. I appreciate it greatly.
I think a fundamental flaw in the system we need to fight is that complex problems, which we absolutely have, complex problems do not require a complex solution. And often, if you think really diversely and differently about the complex problems, the answer is usually staring right in front of us. And for some reason, we cannot accept, because I think it's wrapped into our identity. We try to make things complicated to hold our position of power. This is about power and control. And to hold that, we have to have the most complicated words so that we have to translate that for somebody else to understand it. It can't be as simple as just telling people that they matter and giving them a chance to show how. And my message is, I have proof every 140 characters, every single minute, that that's exactly what it takes. And there is nothing simple about this. So, bringing your full self, bringing your vulnerable self, bringing who you deeply are to work every day and showing up fully is the hardest, most challenging, courageous thing that we do as teachers. And we hide behind our content and we hide behind our complexity so that we do not have to reveal the struggle of being human. And this is human work. This is not academic work. Our customers are people, and we are serving people. And we have to continually fight to remind everyone of that.
Thank you.
That's not quantifiable.
Okay, so we're going to jump to you, Michelle. It's your turn to put Angela in the hot seat.
All right. So I was thinking about what question I would ask, and I think something that I'm really interested in your voice about is the fact that there are two voices that students bring to our classroom. Often they bring that convenient voice, and it's a voice that we want to hear, and it's a voice that we love to post, and we like to tweet about, and we like to share in bulletins and different things. But there's a really heavy, inconvenient voice that comes in, and it could come from you know, you plan this great lesson, and 2 people go, this sucks, this is boring. And it's just identifying the fact that that inconvenient voice for me, I think you mentioned, you know, you bring your full self.
Yes.
Well, we as adults, we do, but what is your message to helping everybody understand that, myself included, how important it is to actually honor that inconvenient voice, and that's where real learning happens?
I first of all want to compliment you for that description, because you didn't say that's an interrupting voice or a disruptive voice. Inconvenient because it doesn't fit in the schedule, because we have said that it is convenient for us to cover, and anything that interrupts that. If we see interruptions actually as acknowledgement that what we're talking about matters, and I welcome interruptions. I'm talking about in a keynote. Not very many people do it, unless, you know, when I'm around kids, they have no problem doing it. And it is actually a compliment. I see interruptions as a compliment, because it's that moment it connected with something or it resonated somewhere, and it's a reminder that the most important voice in the room is not yours. The most important thing is to make sure that all voices in the room are heard. And that's why I think technology is so powerful, because some people are very comfortable sharing their voice, especially the inconvenient thoughts they have, the doubting thoughts, the thoughts that are vulnerable, the thoughts that are discerning. And if we give options where we have reflective writing, or we have a chat window open, or we allow our phones in, because processing what somebody's saying in my own words in the form of 140 characters, it is now so fundamental to my learning that I feel like weird that I'm not writing while we're talking, or I'm not tweeting while we're talking. I'm not doing that. I'm doing that because it is like an extension of my thinking and slowing down my process. So I think we need to use technology to ensure that every voice is heard and every voice is honored. And I think when you do that, then not only will you welcome more interruptions, but you will welcome more truth, that you'll get to more truth in the day, and the respect that you will gain from children, from not just holding them down or saying, you know, not now, not now. And you will learn so much. And I just continually, this is embedded in my belief system. The smartest person in the room is the room, but not unless every voice is fully present in the room. And I don't just mean physical voice. I mean your voice is communicated through your actions. It's communicated through your silence. Your voice is loud when there is straight silence, and you know that there should be words spoken. So I commend you for letting us talk about it that way. Learning isn't always convenient, and the idea that there's chaos and that there's confusion sometimes, that there is critique in it. I think the thing that people misunderstand about a truly collaborative environment is that you need critique in it. You need conflict for true collaboration to happen. If people are just agreeing with one another, it's a cooperative, convenient essence, but you're not reaching a new level of learning. Critique and conflict are a necessary, absolutely critical part for collaboration to actually exist. So the inconvenient is our most beautiful, beautiful attestment.
We were having this conversation
you
earlier
need to get
today.
over here. But she is not being safe. You matter. Your face needs to be over here.
Part of that chat.
Yes,
We were
yes.
talking about how a lot of the tweets at the conference were, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is awesome. And
Absolutely.
This is just great, without any substance or
Yeah,
any
exactly.
adding anything to the
Absolutely.
conversation. That's what if they're not adding anything, they're not dissenting.
It's funny because I think that there's some hindrance sometimes to share your truth. But I really love that you said interruptions get to truth. And I think if we saw that in that positive spin, then the inconvenient voice isn't a problem anymore. It's the truth of the classroom. And I think that teachers tend, myself included, we tend to want things to go well.
Right.
And therefore, to handle that conversation is to say, I'm learning with you.
That's right. It's a framing of what well is, what's your standard of well. So we say all the time that we collaborate all the time. I've very rarely seen true collaboration happen. I've seen a lot of cooperative learning. I've seen a lot of of group work, but true collaboration is incredibly messy, incredibly painful. It is not convenient at all, because what's convenient is for you to get your way, or at least for me to get my way. That's convenient. It's convenient for you to agree with me. It goes faster. I tell my husband this. It goes much faster. At the end of the day, I'm going to win. So you should up front. That's not a true partnership. That's not collaborative. And so it's readjusting our standard for what is good and what is great. And great is messy, and it is so imperfectly, beautifully chaotic.
My final comment to that, sorry, Allison, is I agree with you. I see a lot of student involvement, not as much student voice.
Right.
And I think that's like what you say, collaboration versus cooperation. That's my final. I'll pass on to the next person now. Thank you.
I would love to hear your reactions to that, because I love how you frame that, and I think that is a topic in and of itself, because I think one of the most uncomfortable and inconvenient things that I struggle to tolerate is silence. So when I'm truly asking for student voice, I have to be okay that it is not and almost is never immediate. And so this uncomfortable space where we are almost at the DNA level ready to jump in, especially when it's chaotic, I have to step back and stand back and say, they will figure it out. It is not, the world is not going to fall apart because this doesn't look pretty. The world is not going to fall apart. So that is a huge part of Choose to Matter, is positioning a big issue and positioning the challenge or solution to that to be ours, not to be mine. When they default to me, which they will, very quickly I default to the room. What do you think? I flip it right back. That is incredibly inconvenient because there's no outcome. And I think the hardest part of doing that is making sure that teachers don't interfere with that. And so it's a challenge because it is almost near impossible for teachers not to intervene. And they think that kids are actually going to drown in their inconvenience or drown in the silence. But it is in the grapple, in that zone of uncomfortability, that innovation occurs, that learning soars. And there's nothing comfortable about it. What do you guys think? I mean, you're shaking your head. Do you? What do you guys think about that?
Angela, we call it the iteration process.
That's right.
I'm sorry, Allison, what did you say?
So I've been involved. I don't want to take anybody's time, and I'll be really quick. We call it in our classroom an iteration process. So there's no teacher title given to me. The leaders of the classroom are my students. The curriculum is shared with them. It's broken down. It's directed in terms of where their moments are. There are very awkward moments that I have to guide them sometimes through, but I ask why, how. I use Simon Sinek, start with why.
Yes.
And it's communication with parents have created the key to make this a successful learning space, because they have been brought into the opportunity to learn with their kiddos, with me, meet with them. And it's not, I'm a source, or I'm a resource, I'm not a source. And the minute that the ego is checked at the door, and that we recognize that we are co-learners, co-leaders,
exactly,
not the teachers that once existed in our society, the door opens up for these critical, crucial, absolutely vital conversations to change how we view the entire world. Absolutely. And I truly believe that students, like our Prime Minister said at a big conference here for We Day, students are not the leaders of tomorrow, they're the leaders of today, and we have to give the respect to their creativity.
Absolutely.
And step aside from our own.
Allison, what you said is so important. Knowledge is not disseminated, it is co-created. And so taking the pressure off your shoulders, off teachers' shoulders, that they are not just the keepers of knowledge, the disseminators of knowledge. No one can make meaning for you. We are wired to co-create meaning. We are wired to gain meaning from social interaction. And meaning is driven by the emotion and experience of that interaction. So when you really embrace that, it actually is quite freeing. When you feel like you've got to be like all that in a bag of chips. This is how we used to say it in Iowa. It's very pressure. And you put the pressure on yourself. When you come in and say, how is our day going to go? The responsibility for what you bring and what you get out of the day is from what you bring and how you embrace others to bring their full self. Instead of trying to get the perfect lesson or the perfect score, it's changed how I speak, it's changed how I teach, and it is so, that's what we call liberating genius. It is so liberating to know that the work is ours, that meaning is ours to make, and our goal is ours to reach, instead of mine for you, and then try to do whatever I can to make you jump for it. It is incredibly liberating, and I feel like for the first time I am actually teaching. I am teacher and learner at the same time, and it's beautiful.
Can I jump in here for just one second?
Yes.
I'm Yana Bauer. I'm from Manitoulin Island, and I'm based in so it's amazing. Helen invited me to join you guys, and I'm just back channeling. But one of the things that that kept coming up over and over again today is this idea that students' voice, and a lot of students don't feel like they have a voice. Right. They don't feel like they know enough, that they want to say anything. And the paradigm shift that you're talking about for us, that we don't have to be the be-all and end-all, students have to make that paradigm shift too.
They do.
Because they think that everything they put out there has to be polished and publishable and a product. Yes. And we talked about earlier today that everything has to be redefined as process, because we're not going to get the kids to take those risks if they're going to be judged by those risks.
Absolutely.
I'm going to disappear from the channel.
No, absolutely. What are your thoughts about that? You had something to say. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to toss it to Karima because I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and you waited so patiently. So the Canadians have had a chance to ask questions. Now it's time for a true Texas grilling. So Karima, have at it.
Bring it.
So I was listening to you say that you have to have those much-needed conversations, and some leaders are reserved on having those much-needed conversations, or they're not giving them the necessary feedback that they need. What advice would you give for those leaders that are not doing that, and how can they give it in a way that the teachers feel like they matter? In the same manner, we would want to give our students feedback so that they understand that they matter.
Absolutely. So this is going to sound incredibly cliche, but I mean every word of it. We have a responsibility to be the learner and leader we expect others to be. And that is my biggest beef. We have a lot of managers and a lot of really good managers who know how to organize people underneath them. What the world needs is leaders. And leaders do not speak about things. Leaders act. And they are what they're expecting others to be. So it has been my cardinal rule as a teacher that I would never ask my students to do anything, I mean anything, that I do not do or believe is important to do. I would never insult them as a learner. And I think it's the most insulting and disingenuous thing to say, you do that, you be brave, you be uncomfortable, you take risks, you do this, and then I will stay in my box of comfortability. Leadership is incredibly uncomfortable. And that's really what I say. The opposite of courage is not cowardness. The opposite of courage is comfortability. And every day you have to make a conscious choice to choose uncomfortability, to be intentionally uncomfortable, and to model that. So every time I get out there or take a risk, I'm not only just welcoming that, I'm seeking that. It is my responsibility as a leader to push things. So even today, this is a very small example, and probably no one noticed, but I noticed. So I never allow myself to do, even though the tenets of the speech are different, I never allow myself to do the same thing over. So somebody said at this reception last night, oh, this is old hat for you. I'm sure you talked about that. I said, no, it isn't. This is the first time I get to do this with this community. And every single time the stakes are higher for me because I set a bar higher. So I made, in my opinion, multiple mistakes today. I ran over time, which I'm really conscious of. In my defense, they started 20 minutes late. But anyway, I just don't want to do that to people. And so I'm reflecting on everything. But I'm proud of myself because I added dimensions to it that were risky, things that I didn't say before, that I felt the need to be brave about and say. And at the end of the day, even if I would change 100 things, I get to tell kids that. I get to say, There's nothing robotic. There's nothing rote. It is every day doing something intentionally uncomfortable and pushing yourself. You have a responsibility to do that, or you shouldn't lead. You should get out of the way. And what our kids need most is models of true leadership. And that is very, very few and very far between, because in education we believe leadership is based on a title or a rung or some kind of, rather than action, like real action. So that's my thought.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you agree? Do you see evidence? I see more leadership in teachers than I do. You saw my question. I love it.
I agree.
Than I do people that have the label leader. And,
but I don't.
I see teachers saying, "Oh, I'm just a teacher." I'm like, "You are a leader. What you're doing right now is so courageous, so brave, so fierce. You are a leader. A leader today does not need a title. A leader today is defined by their impact and actions."
Somebody said today at one of the sessions that the word "just" has to be stricken from the vocabulary.
That was me. Yes, and it is. It's the most dangerous word ever. And it is the antithesis of innovation. If the word "just" enters even in someone's thought, then you don't have hope. So
I think my biggest takeaway is the word model. Because we do have a lot of leaders that are encouraging, but you don't see them. Some don't take that step. And so it's kind of hard to see, how do you want me to move forward if I don't see you modeling that for me?
That's right. And I think it goes back to Allison's point about what makes us uncomfortable is because there's this feeling that that teaching is some sort of perfect thing, that the lesson is 48 minutes and at the end it should look like this, or even the end of my speech it should look like this, and it didn't end the way I wanted, and yet it is the process that we should embrace, and the chaoticness and inconvenient things about the process, because that's where you learn. You don't learn when it goes perfect. You don't grow when it goes perfect, and you get complacent very easily. And so it is in that imperfectness that you grow. And so I think the answer to leadership is experience. So you guys all get, so let's say all the technology, which I'm shocked it hasn't, went down and our names are all backward and all this stuff. We get to say to kids, I understand how you feel. I've been there, and here's what I did as a leader. That is a statement of leadership. 99% of what we're asking kids to do, the people standing in front of them cannot say that. They cannot say, I understand how you feel. The first time I did this, I was really nervous. When that happened, here's what I did, and here's what I saw all the leaders around me doing. That is the only thing that is a standard expectation of anybody leading anybody. And we have to expect that of our leaders.
Wow.
Yes.
Karina, anything else from you before we move on to Shayna?
No, I think she answered my question fully. Thank you.
Very good.
You're welcome.
So Shayna, you get to put Angela in the hot seat.
Okay, so I'm going to say first, Karima worded exactly what I was going to ask, because I was going to ask about leaders and how do we get them there. Now I'm gonna frame this question. I hope it comes out as I'm talking, but so I'm in a role where it is infectious, meaning what I do infects others. I know it does. I feel the infection. It's not a germ. It's not a virus, but it could be the good one. You know. And I feel it. Like I feel like I'm permeating. Like I'm sending off these waves.
Oh, I love this language. You should be.
I know. You feel it. You feel it. You feel it. I'm putting it down.
You should. You should
I
be.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm glad you feel it. So, and I see it permeating, but sometimes it doesn't radiate to the leaders. And as Karima said, there is a trickle-down effect. We're in a district where we are 100% Title I.
Yep.
And our students, you know, it's hard for them to see it. And if from the top, and that does not just mean at that principalship level.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from the top, if it doesn't radiate down, it won't reach our students. But some teachers try to get there. My question is, with, you know, choose to matter, you matter.
Yep.
How do we get the teachers to see how, in my role, as I try to permeate, how do I get them to see that even with all of our issues and all of our lack of resources, with all of the inequities, that we can still, that I truly know that I'm reaching you and that you matter.
So you've said so many levels of things. So I think the first deep understanding is the reality is you may never know who you're reaching. So you accept the responsibility that every moment that you're present in the world is a moment to permeate someone. And that means it could be someone on the plane that you're sitting next to, or someone, your only students are not sitting in front of you in a classroom. We are teaching the world through our actions, through our behaviors, through our presence. And every moment we get a chance to demonstrate an entirely different possibility. And so know that every moment you are reaching. You may not know exactly what the ripple is. You may not exactly know. Somebody may not tweet you back and say what you did today mattered, or whatever. So you have to be secure that it did. Your presence impacts other people every single day. And at the smallest level, you may, not only you may have, you most likely have changed lives every day. And it isn't just your students that you're trying to reach. You might have changed lives of your colleagues, their parents, and you may not ever know where that comes, or 10 years later you may understand. So know that every day that is your mission. So you set that as a standard, that your standard is your essence. Your standard is your brand. And your brand promise is not just to your kids, it's to the world. So that's one level. The second level, and what I would say, if we talked about this 5 years ago, I would say there's very little hope to permeate the culture of school. But what is beautiful is that social media, technology is an amplifier. So what happens in a single classroom, or what happens with a single child, is amplified and can affect thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. Here's a small example. A teacher, I don't think I've ever met her face-to-face. She had followed my blog, and I had talked about writing letters to students, like just actually articulating with, you know, deliberateness how much they matter to me. So Erin Kress wrote a letter to her students, and she sent it to me. And of course, everybody who sends me stuff, and I just stalk them on the web, and like, you have a responsibility to share that. I'm blogging about that. And they're like, oh, I don't want to blog. I'm like, you will send that to me, unedited. It will go up on my blog tomorrow. So I shared that, and still today, that has probably gotten over 100,000 shares. Meaning, you have teachers all over the world, because of what one fourth grade teacher did for her 25 kids, now has parents writing letters, has leaders writing letters to their employees, has people writing letters to their postmaster, to everybody, actually using words because of what that one teacher did. So our ability to permeate is linked to our ability to capture what it is that we do every day to make an impact with humility, but from a place of obligation. Like, you have an obligation to share what you do and to show the world what the true story of education is. We have allowed other people to tell our story and to take our story, and it's our fault, because we have not been vigilant about owning our brand and owning what it means to be a leader, to be an educator, and make the case that not everybody in the world just walking off the street who knew biology at one time can be a teacher. It takes a very, very special, courageous person to do this. So our obligation, so what I say is the literacy of the 21st century, or the new ABCs, is always be capturing. So this is not just a device that gives you access to great recipes and wonderful, things that you can do to make your home cuter. This is a responsibility that you capture the genius in your presence, and that means your own genius. So if you do this and it made an impact, you must publish it, and you must do it with conviction and confidence. Are you laughing at me?
I'm a frontline teacher.
Yes.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
I can capture, but I have
to
to be self-aware enough
Yes.
to be able to step back and think about what I
Absolutely.
do and
Yes.
recognize it and be, to me,
Yes.
arrogant to say, oh,
It's
that
not
was
arrogant.
genius, but that's what it feels like. That's what.
Right.
That's
You have to get over that. You're a leader. Yes.
Well, that's the
That's
problem
right.
in our system,
Absolutely.
right? In all our systems.
Absolutely.
And we need people who are a system
Yes.
level or support people. Can you hear me,
Yes,
guys?
I'm so sorry. Here.
Yeah, like I'm sitting here and I'm a
Yes,
frontline
yes.
teacher, and we need people like who are at the system level, who are support people, who are tech mentors, and who are going to remind us, like that teacher you talked about,
Yep.
Miss Lopez, was
Yes,
it?
yes.
Who needed someone to tell her
Yes.
what you're doing is important, and you have a responsibility, and you're
Yep.
being selfish by not sharing it, because otherwise
Yes.
we don't. I mean, I looked around me when you shared that story
Yep.
about Miss Lopez. There were so many people with
I
tears
know.
in their eyes because they forget that they matter,
Right.
right?
And she was
we don't have
lucky
time.
enough
Yeah.
that she got told, but she cannot quit. We cannot lose teachers just because they do not get the feedback. Our goal isn't to please people. Our goal is to impact. That is our singular goal, to wake up every day and impact the world through our actions, our presence, and our behaviors. It is not about receiving accolades or praise. I mean, that's really nice. That's great. I don't need people to like me. I have friends. I don't need fans. I am there to lead. And so if you are secure enough in your inner circle of friends, they not only support you, they keep you humble. Like it doesn't matter if you get 100 likes or whatever it is. So my message and mission to get, what do I want to say, like online attention, is because it permeates more people. I want you to like that. I want you to share that, because that means another teacher is going to take that and take that lesson and lead it and move it forward. So everybody has time to capture. So and I don't know if this is because I was a writer or just because I'm very ADD and forget things, but for my entire existence, I've carried a noticing notebook. This is my noticing notebook. I am trained, and that muscle is strong, and you build it over time. So I am very comfortable telling people, oh, stop for a second. Can you repeat that? I'm going to record it. And they freak out, but then they end up, people internally want to share their story. They want to have a light shined on their brilliance, and you're giving them a front row seat. And so in the beginning, they'll be like, oh, I can't say that. Okay, let me just fix my hair and just go on camera right now. Like, there is not a human being that doesn't light up. It can be a Nobel Peace Prize winner or a 3-year-old. And I'll say, stop for a second. So I was on the plane with this 3-year-old Jordan on the way here. And everybody was, like, within 13 seconds, he did not breathe. He's like, first flight, and he's like, okay, so does the captain wear hats? Like, where do the head? Why do the lady people? I mean, it just went on, and his mom was like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, don't you dare apologize. So I turned to him and I said, those are the best questions. Do you care if I write them down? So I showed him on my Facebook page, like, how many questions he was writing. I never thought of that. What if the captain's in a little pointy place? He called it the little pointy place. What if they get hot? Do they get to go out? When do they get to go out? Do they get bathroom breaks? Like, it's just, do they get to come back and sit with us? I'm writing his questions down, and he's shooting them off as fast as he can. And so this is our greatest gift to another person, is when you say, can you just repeat what you said? That was so awesome.
Can you just repeat what you said?
Yeah.
We got it. We were going to
Yes. So there. This is your noticing notebook for the 21st century.
Noticing genius.
Yes, yes. You have genius in your
Nice.
life every day. Yes.
Shayna, did that answer your question fully?
Okay. And the conversation could go on and on. I mean, yes. And thank you. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you.
So, Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with all of us. It turned out to be just ladies tonight inside the Hangout. I think we have a rogue male at the table. But I wonder if, do we want to turn it to you for a question?
I have
We're
one question.
running close to the end of our time.
Ask this on behalf of Helen because I know that this is going to be a
You
vlog.
haven't
She's going to
said
write.
one thing. You've got to talk.
So Helen and I got to talking about this word that gets thrown around very, very lightly, and so on Helen's behalf, and I'm also very keen on Angela's answer. You've used the word about, I think I counted 8 times.
Oh.
What does the word innovate mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually
This is
answered
coming
this
from the
in French today. this
OLC
question.
Innovate from last week that we
Yes.
talked
Yeah, I do not think that word means what you think it means.
I can't stand the word innovate, actually. I can't stand it, and probably I can't believe I used it 8 times, so I have to be aware of that. So my definition of innovation is an invitation to share your genius with the world, to leave it in a better place than you found it. And we treat innovation like an event or an activity. Innovation is a courageous invitation, an authentic invitation to use what you know, what you've experienced, what you've been given, with the purpose of developing something or creating something that didn't exist without you, that leaves the world and the people in it better off than when you found them. And if we present it as such, then that idea of sharing becomes a moral obligation. You have an obligation to change people with your presence. Your voice is your greatest human right. And we are not exercising our greatest human right, which is to share our story with one another. That's what
Angela, I wonder, could you repeat that? I have a courageous invitation to the world to share something you created, and I want to make sure I capture this because I have to tweet it.
Mark, what did I just say?
Come back to
My head is spinning. I want to just come through the screen and hug you all.
I'm
Like,
just going to plug you in and
yeah. It's an invitation to share your genius with the world, with the purpose of leaving that world and the people in it better off than you found them.
Love it. Thank you so much. I think that's really impactful.
We have
So,
one.
okay, so can I close with one last question? Do you mind one more? Because I know we're getting close to the top of the hour.
Every voice heard tonight, and you sat so patiently.
Okay, there you go.
I want you to share whatever you want to share.
oh my, I'm going to share my genius.
Yes, yes.
my wisdom. It's, we talked about the struggle and the passion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of doing it in action and taking those, like you said, the Japanese sense of kaizen, and just doing it because in the end it's important for us, for our students. It's important for our students, and ultimately that's why I teach, and that's why we're all hanging out here together, because we know it's important for us to do this because it matters to our students.
It does, absolutely.
Our genius.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Helen's such a beautiful person.
Yes. How about you, Whitney? Do you have a question?
I really want to close maybe with, I did another hangout just a little earlier this evening, and it was some women in ed tech who were sharing ideas with each other on how we can mentor and empower each other. And since the topic of leadership came up, I thought it might be nice for you to maybe close this session with us on how we can do a better job mentoring and helping each other as women leaders in the field.
Oh, that is. You know what? I would like the room to answer.
Please do.
I mean that. Like, honestly, because I think this is an incredibly important issue. And what is so interesting is I've watched these change makers, these hundreds of thousands of kids, take their step forward as leaders and be brave and do things that I never would have thought doing at 9 years old and 10 years old. And someone asked me at an event, do boys get to be involved in Choose to Matter? And I was taken aback because I don't actually, when I see a room, that's exactly what I see. So if somebody said, how many boys were in that room, how many girls were in that room, how many tall people, short people, I actually just count the geniuses. I'm like, we have 738 people in this room. All of your geniuses needed. And I don't say like this percentage of boys or girls or whatever. So I started looking back at some of the most powerful initiatives move forward by young people, laws being passed, social innovations being launched, and they were young women between the ages of 9 and 13. They are the fiercest, they are the bravest, and I don't mean what I noticed, and this is very general. So I
don't want to burn the house down.
Yeah, not probably statistically accurate, but boys seem to focus their innovations on and drill down on a single thing, like I'm going to find a cure for cancer, I'm going to do this. The young women are about moving forward change at scale. We're going to rally our community. I'm going to rally our whole thing. I'm going to, work with this community and empower this. They're moving forward at force. So it is a real issue when I move into the workforce conversations and this whole conversation about women in tech, women in leadership, women as they're seen as leaders by the world, when our fiercest leaders are women. I was at a conference and the Dalai Lama spoke right before I brought a group of just what happened to be young women, and he stated to the whole room, Western women will be the ones who change the world. And then soon after that, this group of like 6 amazing girls got up, and then everybody's like, they are the women. So what happens between 13 and whatever age that young women lose their way, lose their confidence, lose their power, and we have to fix that gap. And it doesn't mean that we should not attend to young men. I'm talking about all geniuses, but there's something about where young women are at 11 and 12 and where they are at 27 and 37 and 57. And we need to tackle that head on. So I want the room to weigh in on that.
Do you think, though, and I've been very lucky to work with the Student Voice Initiative here in Ontario with the Ministry Student Advisor stuff coming up. I see something different.
Really?
I see the high school girls wanting to, not for the sake of being this identity of female, but wanting to prove a point. And I think that we almost have to err on the side of caution. Not that I'm not trying to move backwards by any means.
No, and the girls I'm working with and seeing are 8 years old, 9, 10, 11. They're not high school. So I totally agree with you that there's a gap between maybe 12 and 15 or 16, because I don't see that in high school girls. I'm seeing that in elementary young women and fifth and 6th grade. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade are something at late middle school, early high school. It is so drastic when I see K-12 kids. The gap is so obvious. It is the 8-year-olds that get up and take the mic and the 8-year-olds that are moving forward change. So I totally agree with you about the high school girls.
Well, the ones that I see are empowering themselves.
Oh,
they are. They are creating a change here in Ontario that defies what we have known in the past.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
On the council levels, there's being supported on this, and that they're transcending and they're making this shift. And it's because there's more. We have more MPPs. We have more people in the political roles that are female leaders that are willing to put themselves out there to showcase what they can do. And so here within our province, there are a huge number of very powerful women that are not empowering everything. They're approaching it from an angle of not female empowerment, but instead, look what you can do because you are you, not because of the gender or the identity that you are born with, but because of who you are and that you're capable of anything. And I think that's almost what we need to set, not because you're a girl, but because you are you. And that is what's going to drive you to do this amazing change, and you will go where you need to go because we will support you. I don't know if that, I don't want to sound like I'm an anti-something, but that's the feedback I've got from some teenagers that in the work that I've done.
That is the overall philosophy of Choose to Matter, but there is a slight, it's not a disagreement, a slight push that I think is an uncomfortable, inconvenient conversation. Because as a woman, it goes back to Mrs. Lopez. Think of how many women in education there are surrounding our young girls.
Yes.
That do not see themselves as powerful women, that see themselves as just a teacher. and they live into their genius and their role. So kids have this incredible opportunity to be impacted and infected, permeated by strong, powerful women who at the end of the day, two things, and this is a big elephant in the room, two things. They themselves do not see themselves as an empowered woman, as a leader. They put on their own label, the title, I am just a teacher. But secondly, and I think this is really deep, and it is the single reason I left my school, is that women are horribly horrible to each other. I have surrounded myself with men, and I would say my greater network until now, until I've met the women in I don't say ed tech, but the women, my community on Twitter, is the first female community that I've been around that is fully supportive, that is encouraging, that is demanding, that is challenging, that I don't. Women have been awful to me all the way through, where you think that you're going to find embracement and understanding. There is ridicule, there is judgment, there is criticism, there is, and it is not like about what you're doing, it is at your character and at your core. And there is a mentality where women are our own worst enemies. So in one breath we say we want to be empowered and we're not doing this. We are awful to each other. And I have too important of work to do to be in that mentality. So I have gravitated to doing work with men because they don't mess around in those arenas. They do not treat one another like that. And I don't know if people talk about that, but our problem isn't that we're not empowering each other. Our problem is we're tearing each other down.
Important. And I wanted to say something on that, and I know we're getting really, really close. I know it's at the top of the hour, but on I'm in elementary, so I know what you're talking about with those 8 and 9-year-olds.
Yes.
The issue, and I would love to be in Canada where they feel empowered.
Yes.
I'm in a different climate where the girls that are between the ages of 10 and 12 or 10 and 13 don't feel empowered. I went from teaching 4th grade where the girls sucked up everything. They embraced it. They took ownership. Yes. They realized and understood that they mattered. To seeing the same students I taught now in 6th and 7th grade pleading with me to come back to the classroom because they know that I know that they matter, and how can they get that back? Where is this going? And they're not back in the sciences. They're going in different directions. Maybe I should just dance. It shouldn't be I'll just dance. I'm settling because they don't feel that support. They don't have that confidence in themselves.
Right.
And then it is that dynamic that you're saying where their teachers that are the women of the faces that they see.
Absolutely.
They feel like, well, I'm just a teacher. What can I do?
Absolutely.
It's a really bad rebirth cycle.
It is. I love that. It is a rebirth cycle.
And you want to empower them, and I'm like, you're right. You can't just say like I was about to tell you. I'm just one person, and I'm spread, to and through others. But I need them to start seeing it, and so that they can help our babies.
Absolutely.
They're not the 16 and 17-year-olds yet, where they do get that burst of confidence and they're ready to go on to college or whatever's next. They are looking and trying to figure out where their voice is and where the support system is and who has my back, so that I can brace myself on the ground and say, I know I matter. Where's that
thing? Who has my back? And I would love to say to young girls that my whole life, women have had my back. My whole life, I have been surrounded by empowered, confident, fierce women who demanded me to be as fierce as they. But my story, and maybe I'm different, but I don't think so. My story.
You're not. Angela, I hate to interrupt you, but you're not. You're not alone, and you are definitely preaching. You are definitely everything. And I wanted to say this earlier, and I forgot. I was getting caught up in a moment, but you was. I needed to hear this tonight. Mm-hmm. This was. Thank you, Whitney. I needed this. Like I needed, and as people in here that know, watching this, that I so needed to hear all of these things. It kind of puts you on a track when you kind of feel like you're going to go off just a little bit. And no, you're doing right. Yep. Don't stop. Don't just keep leaping.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because you're going right. So thank you.
For an hour, but I do want to put this out here. Going back to our conversation, our initial focus is to liberate all the genius. But I think one of the things that we have to help young women understand and be comfortable with is the balance of embracing our uniqueness and our femininity. And that to make it in the world, you don't have to give that up or become manly in order to be respected. And so this is like a silly thing. I'm going to be super vulnerable. But my shoes, I don't just love shoes because I love shoes and I'm obsessed with them, but they represent to me my power, because I'm not going to give up my shoes. I'm not going to, the doctor makes me, but I'm not saying, and this is like totally probably going to come out wrong, but it is part of what makes me feel feminine. And I'm not going to wear a pantsuit when it isn't me, when this is me. And to be fully me means to wear like gaudy jewelry and really high shoes, and that I don't have to give that up to be respected as a leader. That my performance is not based on how I look or how I should look or how I should fit in. I'm not talking about dressing inappropriately. I'm just talking about you don't have to give that up. And I think that we place a lot of judgment. We don't allow women to be fully themselves. And femininity comes out, I don't mean just in clothes, but in your whole presence. And if you're not fully embracing who you are and whatever that means, no matter what norm that fits in, and recognizing that, I think we give up our greatest asset, which is to be a woman, and to not step down from that, to be honored that we're women and that we think different and our brains are different and we're wired different. And that doesn't mean better. That means we need men and we need an incredibly diverse group. But I'm not giving up who I am. I'm owning that fully and using that as an advantage to do the work that only we can do. And there's work that only men can do. And I don't mean that as an inequality, but there really is a place for a woman's touch and a woman's voice. And there's a place for a man's, and there's a place for a unified voice. And I embrace that gender ability and not see it as a disability.
Well, and I don't want to cut anybody short, because I think that we could probably talk for several more hours, and there may have to be some behind-the-scenes coverage of what goes on after we close the session, but we're at about an hour and 4 minutes. And Angela, if you didn't notice, when you talked about how women treat each other, every head was nodding. And I think we've all experienced what I'll call lobster syndrome. If you've ever seen a lobster try to get out of the tank, the other lobsters will grab that lobster and pull it back in, right? So having these honest conversations and finding partners, females that you can mentor or work with, that you can help and they can help you, is so powerful. And I hope I see us sharing our own Twitter handles with each other, and I hope that the conversation continues. And thank you so much, you and Helen both, for spending the time with us tonight. This has been fantastic. And I hope, Helen, after you stop the broadcast, we can all have just a few more words before we call it a night.
I feel so proud to be in this conversation with you. This is, like, I want to screenshot this. This is what I want to show young women.
I have several shots.
I'm not taking one.
You know what's so funny right now? I just messaged my friend Nick.
Yes.
Who was supposed to be here, and I say that I'm sad he's not, but in the same time,
I'm so kind of glad.
It worked, because like many of you, this is, I think, what I needed. Despite what I said about the empowerment, seeing kiddos being like that, everything that was just said was beautifully done, and yes.
Views do matter, even if they're flat. They do matter.
I'm going to pull the record button, and we can stay and talk a little bit more. But thank you all for joining us.
Thank you all. Wow, I'm
Thank you.